BT's Green Thumb, brought to you by St. Mary's Nursery, every Wednesday morning on Breakfast Television.
Yeah, and Carla joins us once again in Green Thumbs as we're looking at things we can do to take care of our soil for next planting season. All right, let's talk a little bit about our particularly strong binds in our Manitoba soil. What can we do to help with that?
Well, what we can do is there's amendments. And when people go, what do we do? What are we talking about? Amendments. It's what can we supplement and put into our gardens, because we're a lake bed. All our everything is lake bed. We might have a little bit of topsoil at the top of underneath our sod and all that kind of stuff, but naturally our soils, after we know, bind up and they become little clay balls. We were talking about kids digging up clay in the garden and sculpting things.
Which is good for the kids, terrible for growing.
Terrible for growing, and it's hard because, you know, it's too hard for some plants that need that nice light tilth soil.
Yep.
So there's certain things that we can go through. This one here,
Clay Buster.
We forgot to get a knife.
Mikey, thanks, buddy.
That's in there. So if we can get a knife.
I just had I would rip it, but I just had a manicure.
Here. No, hey.
Oh, thank you.
Leftover from yeah, I normally don't have that on either. Anyway, Clay Buster, little granular pellets. It's made of gypsum that's in it. And if you look at that and you put it on the top surface of your soil, gently till it in, and we're doing it now because it needs a little bit of a time frame for it to go through. So next spring, you'll feel that when you take that trowel through your garden, it's not going to be like rock hard. It's going to give it that nice little breakdown that's on it.
So we do this now so that it has time to work in the soil.
Exactly, because the composition of it is you want it to be able to react with your soil and break up that clay binding properties that are in it. So Clay Buster, it's my go-to for fixing up my garden. Okay. The other one that's in through here is if you don't want to do the manual sort of tilting in, kind of rotating and that kind of stuff, there's a liquid application. So you can actually spray that in your garden. It'll do the same thing. One little bottle does about 1,000 square feet. Okay. It's on the garden, so that can be done as well.
And does it need the same amount of time to work as the Clay Buster does?
You'll want to give it some time and some application. You might want to do one in the late fall because you're not doing it as early, but late fall, and then again early spring before you start your rotating. Okay. Okay, now when you get into some of the soils and bases, because we're also doing it the same time you're adding it, and I apologize, I didn't bring peat moss, but it's the big bales of peat moss. And throw it on the shoulder.
But when it's bigger than you don't have to bring it in. That's going to be our rule, okay? If it weighs more than you do, leave it at the shop.
But that too can be amended, and that's at the same time when we're starting to tidy up our gardens and we're working around some of those plants, amending it and bringing it in, because the peat moss has the property of it having high acidic. It adds acidity to it because our soils now are not only clay based, but they're alkaline because we have a tendency to wash and clear things through. So we need that acidity brought into our gardens because the plants benefit from it. Now, mushroom compost. Mushroom compost, very beneficial. Okay. You're adding it also to the garden because you're adding organic base. But the mushroom compost too, because when we're talking about our gardens and our lawns, we're also finding that when you walk on your lawn and it gets compacted too, we want to add that little bit of diversity and so fluff to get through it. So mushroom compost, broadcasted over your grass, is going to add you a little bit of organics, and it'll actually seep down through it, and it'll actually add a little bit more of organics and better composition for your soils. Okay, quickly, let's get to the straight poop. What about manure? Oh, manure is always good. Hey, we can open that? Why not? Again, I just had a mani. You just had a mani? Okay. Well, I'm going for a mani on Saturday, so I don't mind. But you know what? People go, ooh, if it says steer manure and all that kind of stuff on it, but look there's nothing wrong with this. It's beautiful, it's compostable, and sometimes they'll use a bark base or organic base that's in with it. So very, very good for the garden. Again, you're having your organics, you sit through it down it. Over the winter, you do your application and you can leave it resting. So when you're ready to go in your nice, loose garden, you already have your organics, you have your peat moss for your high acidity, and it's ready to feed. Alfalfa too. Alfalfa as well. It's not only just for the rabbits, for feeding rabbits. Put some alfalfa, just watch how much you broadcast into your garden because it is very high in nitrogen, so you don't want to cause burning, but a broadcast, it's tilth, it's adding organics, it's adding stuff. Perfect for the vegetable garden. If this wasn't the growing year you hoped it would be, maybe it's these things you need to do. We got more with Carla Hrsina coming up. She's going to wash her hands and then talk about fall colors with Trucosa. I've got that and more coming up on BT. Always a pleasure, Carla.